So this is lesson 2.1, quadratic equations. I'm not sure which paper I gave you. However, I think this one has the notes on it and the other one doesn't. I'm not sure which one I gave you. But the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. It says a, b, and c are constant. That just means they're numbers. And a cannot be 0, because if a was 0 and we had 0x squared, it would go away, and then it would just be a linear equation with x to the first power. The zero product property just says that because of this right here, then we can factor quadratics and set the factors equal to 0. Is all that means. So we're going to do set equal to 0. So first off, we're going to say minus 5x and minus 5x and get x squared minus 5x. Then we're going to have to add 4 and add 4 over here. So then we have equals 0. Factor if possible, set factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So factoring this, 2 parentheses, x goes in the first spot, the factors of 4 that add to give us 5 would be 4 and 1. They both have to be negative. And because of this, we can set, because of the zero product property, we can take this and set it equal to 0, and we can take this and set it equal to 0. This one would equal 4, and this x equals 1. So you will usually get 2 solutions, and that's what we got here. Now, if you have trouble with the factoring part, ask me in class and I will go over that. Or Google it, find it on YouTube, and there's a good method called the X method or the cross method, crisscross method, and it's a really good method to use. Alright, next one. Alright, so here, again, we've got to get everything on one side. So that's x squared. That's minus 6x. That went away. Now we have to add 9 and add 9 over here. And now it equals 0. So 2 parentheses, x and x. The factors of 9, 3 times 3, add to give us 6. So 3 and 3. Both are minus. And so since these are the same, we really only have to do this once, and we get x equals 3. And when you get the same thing twice, it's called a double root. So it does have 2 roots, it's just that it happens to be the same thing. On this one, since there is no b term, you can simply isolate x and take the square root. So here we're going to divide by 4. And now we get x squared by itself. And then we take the square root, which means we take the square root of 5, we take the square root of 4. Well, this simplifies to the square root of 5 over 2. And anytime you take a square root, it's positive or negative. So it's positive the square root of 5 over 2. Also negative the square root of 5 over 2. Okay, the quadratic formula. It says know this formula. It says x squared equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, the whole thing divided by 2 times a. It says if you are not good at factoring, then you can always use this. You will be responsible for being able to do the quadratic formula by hand on the test. So the height h of a ball thrown into the air with the initial velocity of 20 feet per second is modeled by this equation, where t is the time in seconds. So when the ball reaches a height of 10 feet, when will the ball reach a height of 10 feet? Well, height is this. So since you want a height of 10 feet, plug 10 in for h of t, and then use the quadratic formula. So we're going to do 10 equals negative 16t squared plus 20t plus 6. Now, we can't do this until we equal 0. So we're going to minus 10 and minus 10 here. That went away to give us 0. Now we have negative 16t squared plus 20t minus 4. So now we can pick out A, B, and C. A equals negative 16. B is in front of the t, so that's 20. And C is without the variable. So now we've got to take this and put it in here. So let me see what I've got down here. Yeah, I got a little bit more room there, so I'm going to erase this stuff. Alright, so x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. So now we're going to simplify negative 20 plus or minus 20 squared is 400. Negative, negative, negative is going to be a negative. 16 times 16 is 256 over negative 32. So now, that's x equals, so can't do anything there. We're going to say 400 minus 256, and that gives us the square root of 144, negative 32. So keep simplifying. That would be 12. Square root of 144 is 12. And now we have two problems. Negative 20 plus 12 divided by negative 32. And we have negative 20 minus 12 divided by negative 32. So this is negative 8 over negative 32, which is positive 1/4. This is negative 32 over negative 32, which is 1. So here are the solutions. X equals 1/4, x equals 1. Questions? Or can't ask me questions, write your questions down and I will answer them in class. It also said to write a sentence about your answer. So, negative 20, negative. When will the ball reach a height of 10 feet? Well, we have two answers. So that means it reaches the height of 10 feet twice. So one of those times is when x is 0.25 seconds. And at 1 second. So the ball reaches a height of 10 feet at 25 seconds and at 1 second. Okay. Here we can use the quadratic formula again. It's equal to 0. So we can say that A, B, and C A is what's in front of x squared, B is what's in front of x, and C is without the variable. So x equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared, make sure you put that in parentheses, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. So x equals 5 plus or minus the square root 25 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 1 is 8 over 4. So x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 17, I think. Yep. Over 4. So now we've got two problems. 5 plus the square root of 17 over 4, and 5 minus the square root of 17 over 4. Alright, the next one, x squared plus, equals 2x minus 7. So first we got to get everything on one side. So x squared minus 2x plus 7 equals 0. And A would be 1, B would be negative 2, C would be 7. So x, I'm going to come up here. X equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. Don't forget to put that in parentheses, the B squared, 2 times 1. So that's positive 2, plus or minus 4 minus 28 over 2, and that gets us x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 24 over 2. And since we have a negative under the radical, we're going to have no real solutions, because you can't have a negative under the radical. Okay, so A would equal 4, B would equal 20, C would equal 25. So the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C with over 2 times A. 4 times A, that's a 4, times C, which is 25. Okay. Alright, so negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 400 over 400, or sorry, minus 400 divided by 8. And that equals negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 8. It says, what do you notice about this problem? So what do we call it? Since it has a square root of 0, it's just going to be 0. So it doesn't matter whether I add 0 or subtract 0, I'm still going to get negative 20 over 8. And this would be 10 over 4, see, 2, 10. 4 will go into both of them, so 5 over 2. So x would equal negative 5 over 2. What do we call it? I'm not sure exactly what they were wanting there. But what you need to see is that if under the radical you have a 0, you're going to have one solution. If under the